The Realme GT NEO 3 is here. My brother just bought it, so I borrowed his for a couple days. So we're going to see how it compares to the F4 GT in this video, and in a later video we're going to check out the gaming test, which I'm super excited for. So let's get started right now. Selamat pagi, good morning everyone, Kenneth here. Welcome to another phone review video, but this one I think it should be super exciting for you guys because it is a very strong contender to the F4 GT, and probably in some ways I think it's just a better phone. So we're going to talk about everything you need to know in picking the Realme or the POCO F4 GT, and definitely hit the subscribe button for the gaming test coming very soon. Okay, with that aside, let's get started by talking about what's inside the box. First things first, I really like how Realme packed the box here. As you can see at the intro, I unboxed it very quickly. You still get an included case here. Mine is a little bit yellow already because I've used it for a couple months, but the Realme ones is blacker in color, which means it's going to resist yellowing even further, which is I think a nice feature. As you can see, it fits pretty tightly, the buttons are pretty good, and there is a raise on the camera as well as the screen here, so it protects both your screen and camera, and of course you have this screen protector built in as well. So that's just standard stuff, not gonna go too deeply about that. The POCO F4 GT case also does the same, but the most important difference in my opinion is I think on the included charging brick here. So this is the Realme charging brick, and I'm gonna take the Xiaomi charging brick right here. So this is 150 watts here on the Realme side and 120 on the Xiaomi, and impressively enough, the Realme is even smaller despite having 150 watts of power. And in terms of weight, I think they are pretty much the same, and build quality wise, I do think the Xiaomi is built a little bit better, but you know, this is very well built as well. But the most important difference is gonna be on the top connector here. So on the Realme side, we got USB-C connector, whereas on Xiaomi, we got USB-A connector. So we are long past the USB-C transition already. I think we all have USB-C cables, and going to the future, I think USB-C is going to win here because it's more universal. You can use it to charge your laptop, to charge your phone, to charge anything you need. But unfortunately, when I compared these two and charging my MacBook Pro, which supports USB-C PD charging, the Realme only outputs 45 watts of power, whereas on Xiaomi, it outputs 65 watts of power. So nowhere near their maximum speed, but still this shows that the Xiaomi supports more devices here.
As for charging the phone itself, to be honest, I think anything above 100 watts is just a numbers game. The Realme charges just as impressively fast as the POCO, so no matter what phone you get, you'll have no complaints on this part.
And also I want to talk about one more aspect, and that's gonna be the included cable. So this is the Realme cable right here. It's nice and thick, super thick to support that 150 watts of max power. And then it's all USB-C to C here, which is nice, but it's only about 1 meter long right here, whereas on the POCO F4 GT, we've got like a very long cable, almost like 1.5 to 2 meter long right here. That's I think also a very important feature that you get on the F4 GT, as well as not forgetting this L-shaped connector that supports gameplay even further. And I also want to talk briefly about the 3.5mm headphone jack here. Both doesn't have it inside the phone, but the POCO F4 GT at least supplies you a dongle inside the box, whereas on the Realme side, you don't get that. So that's a very important thing. You're kind of forced to buy either an adapter or a Bluetooth gaming earbuds. But of course, you can always check out my gaming earbuds recommendations in my channel playlist, so don't forget to subscribe for that. I'll link them down below. But yeah, let's move on to the next aspect. So starting off with the pricing here, I think the Realme has the edge here because it is already cheaper spec to the POCO F4 GT, perhaps due to the Dimensity compared to the 8 Gen 1 chip. And that really affects the performance to value ratio, but we're gonna talk about that in the gaming section, which will be in another video. But let's get back to the build quality here, and I gotta say both are very premium. It's both glass back matte finish, they are very nice to hold. And probably the Realme is a little bit nicer here because it is curved on the sides here. So when you grab it, it doesn't cut your hand as much as the POCO F4 GT, even though this is already nicer than the POCO F4. But the more important thing is on the cameras here. So on the POCO F4 GT, you have an older Sony sensor, 64 megapixel, but it is a smaller sensor compared to the Realme here, and it doesn't have optical image stabilization. But the rest of the camera setup is pretty much the same. We have the depth sensor here, we have an ultra wide that's just alright. And here are some sample shots that I took with the Realme, and yeah, so far it's looking very nice. Okay, so here we are with the Realme GT NEO 3 back camera. It can record up to 4K 60, but right now we are on 1080/30. So let's move a little bit and we'll see how the optical image stabilization. Just walk normally, you don't need to be very stable. But yeah, this is how it looks like. The phone is shaking a little bit, so just give it a little test here. Are the footage very nice? How do you hear my sound? Are they being captured well? So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go back to the front camera now. Alright, so now we are on the front camera, and I turned off the retouching, and this is about, what time is it now? It's 5:30. So it's not too bright, but you can still see that the exposure is pretty nice, and yeah, that's just how it looks like. Let's walk a little bit here and we'll see how can you use this stabilization. I think it's not very usable in this lighting condition, but yeah, I think it's pretty good. Alright, that's pretty much it. Let's go back to the video. Now moving on to the sides here, we can see the main difference of the F4 GT is this pop-up trigger right here that we don't have on the Realme, and also we have a very small power button here compared to the F4 GT. That's because F4 GT embeds its fingerprint sensor on the power button, whereas the Realme uses an under-display fingerprint sensor. I think both are great. You know, the power button is just where your thumb is at, so it's very quick to unlock the POCO, but it always feels nice to just tap your finger on screen to unlock your phone. Unlocking is very fast as always. As you can see here, 3, 2, 1. That's on the Realme. F4 GT is even faster, 3, 2, 1. That's pretty much instant. Finally, the power button also has a little bit of texture there, which is a nice touch, but you know, if you use any case, it will cover it anyway. Okay, moving on to the other side here, we do have the same volume button placement, which is down here. The Realme is separated, whereas the POCO F4 GT is one button. But then you have a third mic hole down here, which is another very important design difference of the F4 GT because it is designed for gaming, whereas the Realme is just your normal phone. So let's take a look down here right now, and we can see that the speaker placement is about the same. That's down here on the right. So if you're going to play games, you're not going to cover that even on the Realme, which is nice. But on the top side, that's different. This is down here, so you are going to cover that. Also, one more very important difference is the POCO F4 GT has a IR blaster, whereas on the Realme, I don't see that happening on the top here. Okay, now let's move on to the display here, and both has always on display. I know that the F4 GT is refreshing at 30 Hz when it's on always on display, but I cannot see the refresh rate of the Realme here, so I cannot tell you on that. On the brightness side here, I think both are very good displays here. Both are vibrant and they are HDR compatible. But then if we take a look at the side bezels here, you can see that the F4 GT has a slightly smaller bottom bezel compared to the Realme. But just like all things taken into consideration, both are great displays and they look pretty much the same all around, which is very, very nice. And at this price, this is just a great display. Also, the camera cutout at the top here, they're pretty much at the same size, so I don't have anything to say on that. I'm not gonna talk about MIUI versus Realme UI differences here. That's too much to talk about. Just know that both of them will have a lot of bloatware at first, so you need to delete them, disable like all these stuff. And maybe it's because I don't have that much experience with Realme OS. So far, I still haven't found any way to disable like that app scanning feature after you like install any app. Even for Play Store, it's gonna pop up like, oh, app is scanned, it's safe from virus, and then here's some more ad for you. I was like, and I really wanted to disable that. I can disable that on the MIUI already. So do let me know down below if you have any tips and tricks on Realme. And one very important aspect that I want to touch is haptics. And on the Realme, it surprisingly is comparable to the POCO F4 GT. For example, when you're typing like this, it has like a very precise and strong haptic feedback. But unfortunately, what I don't like is with the system-wide haptics, if you go back like from the side here, in Realme, it will give you a haptic feedback, whereas on the Realme, it doesn't. But that's nitpicking at this point, but I just wanted to let you know on that. Finally, let's talk about speakers, because that's also one of the very important selling point with the F4 GT. And so let's check it out right now. Now, one last thing to talk about here, and that's audio codec. If we're comparing Qualcomm to MediaTek here, that's gonna be in Qualcomm's favor because it does have its own Haptics adaptive like proprietary technology. So this will support Haptics adaptive, whereas on the MediaTek, it's going to support only Haptics, and that's it. So SBC, AAC, and Haptics. No Haptics adaptive, no Haptics HD. It does support LDAC though, because that is not tied to the chip. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the quick comparison. Hopefully this video helps. I think a big part of the comparison will be on the performance section, which I'm going to talk about in a separate video like I told you. So do subscribe and stay tuned for that video, because that is coming soon and you're going to see which one is really the best choice for you. Okay, affiliate links are down below if you want to help me support the channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Kenneth. I'll see you in the next one.